I'm now in conversation with Jean Glanville, who's got many strings to her bow. She lives in the famous nearby village of Grafton Regis, which has a long history with Henry VIII that I'm sure Jean is going to tell us about. But Jean is the costume maker for some of the heritage historic events that go on in Grafton Regis. So, Jean, we were talking a few minutes ago about your involvement in technology. Just tell me a bit about your job with Whitbread.
When I worked with Whitbread, I was on the development teams and installation teams, obviously, for back of house systems for pubs and the new tilt systems that were coming in. Because when I first joined, they were still using the tills where the staff were adding up in their heads around as they went along. They didn't have the nice little product key to push that told them how much items were.
Okay, so that what we'd, in my days of IBM, that's what we would call the EPOS system, presumably,
Yes,
electronic point of sale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, that was a revelation to me. I know you're very articulate and intelligent from my experience of you, but I didn't realise that you'd had that involvement in technology. So you came to Grafton Regis. Just tell us a little bit about how you came to live in Grafton Regis.
Well, my husband was in the RAF. I initially come from Lincolnshire. He came from Hampshire. We moved around the world, the country, obviously, with his career. When we came to getting to the end of our careers, we had to decide where we were going to settle. Our daughter was living at Vista and had 3 young children, so we thought we'd move near her. But as I said to you earlier, since then she's moved to Bristol.
But with the modern technology, we can still communicate. You can still communicate with your family. So can you just tell me a little bit about Grafton Regis and its history?
Yeah, Grafton Regis started rediscovering its history in the millennium year, like lots of other places, and everybody was looking to see what they should be doing in that period. And they suddenly realised the massive history that is here, starting with the Woodvilles. Most famous Woodville being Elizabeth Woodville, who married Edward IV. They were parents to the princes in the Tower. Their eldest daughter, Elizabeth of York, married Henry VII, Henry Tudor, and their son was Henry VIII. So it's really quite only lineage of the royal family in the UK today.
So you could really argue that Grafton Regis was in a way the birthplace of the Tudor dynasty.
Yes, also the birthplace of the Church of England, because Henry VIII was here, staying at his manor with Anne Boleyn when Cardinal Wolsey and Campeggio came back from Rome to tell him he couldn't have a divorce. So it could be here that the idea formed in his mind that he would break away from Rome.
Yes, so it's really got a lot to answer for, Grafton.
Yeah, quite a lot.
And actually the name Regis it also comes from Henry VIII, I believe.
Yes, that's because it's in honour of his grandmother.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So Grafton Regis has a lot of history, but it's how does the village now celebrate that history? Tell me about some of the events that you're involved in organising.
Yeah, well, following on from the Millennium activities, when several villages got together, pulled the history together, produced a book, and then a double CD. Leicester University was involved in the history department, and they asked if they could bring students over for a talk about the history. And it sort of started from there. So we thought, well, if people are interested, maybe we should put on events and earn some money, for the village hall and the church. And that's really how it all started. We first started with using characters who lived in the village and telling their story. And now we've moved on to the roles that everybody likes, the ones where they're all dressed up in fancy costumes. So we've got Henry VIII, Richard III,
So we're just amazed that 20 years later, people still want to come and attend these events. We do, as well as the historic walks, which you've been on yourself, David. As you know, we started the village hall, introduced some characters, walking out of the church, meet more characters coming there, into the church, more characters, we'll bring you back to the village hall and give you a nice afternoon tea.
Yes. So, and these are very, very, very popular, and this in the same way that the regular village luncheons that you have during the winter period, where you have guest talks and so on, and those take place in the Grafton Regis Village Hall, which has lots of interesting pictures around the wall telling the story about Elizabeth Woodville and also Henry VIII. But it's also got a portrait of Shakespeare. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yes, this is as you know, Keith Harry, one of our villagers, he's been researching the history. This portrait turned up of Shakespeare somewhere up north in a pub. But he said originally been in a cottage which was next door to my house, but it was burnt down when a steam engine went through and spark from the chimney set the thatch light. Anyway, this portrait ended up north somewhere, but we're trying to get it accepted as a real portrait, as an original portrait of Shakespeare, because Elizabeth Woodville's favourites used to rent out Grafton Manor, and Essex was one of these people, and he used to bring the actors along with him. So it's quite sort of possible that Shakespeare was here in Grafton and had his portrait painted here, because the costume and the age of the figure in the portrait fit in very well with that period.
And I believe that so the portrait that you have in the village hall is obviously a copy.
Yes.
I believe I might have seen the supposed original one of this in a museum in Manchester.
Yes.
I think it was quite a famous museum there. It's showed as being featured there. And the final thing is, which really brings us round to the Heritage, the Lottery Fund, where the local church has just received some funding for the development or rebuilding of the tower. But Grafton Regis Church also has its own bit of history with a certain admiral. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Well, yes. Our history sort of goes through the Woodvilles and then the Tudors, and then we go on to the Dukes of Grafton. And the first Duke of Grafton was the son of Barbara Villiers and Charles II, and that's well, we have the Dukes of Grafton. And their family name was Fitzroy. After she had several children with Charles II, Barbara Villiers asked their family name, and he gave them the name Fitzroy. And one of the most famous Fitzroys is Robert Vice Admiral Fitzroy, who was captain of the Beagle. He took Darwin around Chile, Argentina, Galapagos, where Darwin did all that research. But he was also very interested in the weather, and he disliked the fact that ships went to sea and were lost at sea because the captains didn't know what the weather was like. The owners weren't bothered at all because they got insurance and the ship went down, they got the money back. Anyway, he was responsible for setting up, as we know now, the meteorological office. He started putting equipment at the port so that the captains could check the weather before they left port. And the first weather forecast in the Times was lost by Admiral Fitzroy, and he was ridiculed for it.
Yeah, and that's an amazing story. And as I understand, my memory serves me correctly, he used to suffer from depression, which she called the Black Dog. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to carry on talking all day with you, Jean. I'm sure we there's so many things you can talk about. I'm just glad that you're available to be part of our panel next Tuesday. Alongside Josie Fraser, I'll also have other panelists, one of whom is an old school friend of mine. We went to Moscow together in 1966 on a school trip. And most recently, he repeated the journey by driving his 1932 Austin 7 from from Wiltshire to Tokyo, all across Siberia. So he's going to be one of my panelists. Another fine example of active aging, like yourself and myself, hopefully. So, thanks very much for your time, and we will speak again before next week.
Okay, thanks, David. You're welcome.